138, and they have no common factors, so that problem is finished. Number 2, we have negative 2 1/2 times negative 1 2/3. The first thing we do is we go around, we multiply, then add, and put it back over the denominator. So negative 2 1/2 is the same thing as saying negative 5/2. We do that same thing here. We multiply the 3 and the 1, then we add the 2, and we put it back over the denominator, giving us negative 5/3. Again, we have a negative times a negative, so we're going to have a positive answer. 25/6, which we did do some long division. I'm going to show the long division on this problem, but I am not going to show it on remaining problems so that this video isn't 2 hours long for you guys, but I do want to show this in case anybody needs it as a review. In order to do the long division here, we are going to take this fraction, 25/6. We are going to put the big number inside the division. We're going to put the small number on the outside. Now, if I skip count with my 6's, or I know my 6 multiplication facts, I can go 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12, 6 times 3 is 18, 6 times 4 is 24, 6 times 5 is 30. Okay, 30 is too big to fit within 25, but I know 6 times 4 is 24. So I'm going to put that 4 right here. I'm then going to say 6 times 4, and I'm going to subtract 24 from 25. We're looking for how many are left over after I apply that 4. There's 1 left over, so the 1 becomes your numerator, and then the number that we were dividing by becomes our denominator, and that is how you would do the long division to get our complete answer. So 4 1/6. Number 3, negative 5 times positive 5 is negative 25, and then 12 times 8 is 96. 25/96, negative. Number 4, we have 2/7 times negative 7/9. Here, we went ahead and divided by 7 to simplify. Here, we multiplied 2 times 7, and we got negative 14, and then 7 times 9, and we got 63. Then we divided by 7 because 14 and 63 have a common factor of 7, meaning that we can simplify that fraction down to a smaller form, a more simple form. 14 divided by 7, or negative 14 divided by 7, would be negative 2. 63 divided by 7 would be 9. I'm going to correct that. 63 divided by 7 would be 9. So that would be our final answer. Sorry about that mistake. Number 5, we just have some decimal calculations. Negative 0.3 times negative 0.27 equals 0.081. Number 6, 5.5 times 0.021 equals negative 0.1155. Here we have 2 mixed numbers that we need to turn into improper fractions. So our first one, negative 4 1/2, becomes negative 9/2. Negative 3 3/4 becomes negative 15/4. When we multiply the negative 9 times the negative 15, we get positive 135. 2 times 4 is 8. You would perform that long division, and you would get 16 7/8. Now, number 8 is interesting because you have a decimal and a fraction. If you were to try and turn this into a decimal, you would get negative 1.6 repeating, which is not necessarily a number that we can just straight up use in a multiplication problem. So instead, we have turned the 7.75 into a fraction, which is 7 3/4. So that's the one that we're going to use within the problem. So we have 7 3/4 times negative 1 2/3. You would turn both of these into improper fractions. Again, that's just by multiplying your denominator and your whole number, adding your numerator, and then placing it back over the denominator. 31 times 4 times negative 5/3 equals negative 155/12. Performing long division would give us negative 12 11/12 as our final simplified answer. Number 9, another word problem. Annalise withdraws $22.50 each day from her account for a week. How can you represent the change in the account for the week? Again, we remember that withdrawal means that that money is going to be considered negative. You do need to have your background knowledge of how many days are in a week. That would be 7 days. So negative $22.50 times 7 equals negative $157.50. Number 10, Kyle incorrectly says that the product of negative 6/7 times negative 1/11 is 6/77. What is the correct product? When we do the math correctly, we find out that it is negative 6/77. I want you to look at this problem and see how many negatives are in the entire problem. there's 3. And if you remember what we talked about on the other page, if you have an odd number of negatives within your problem, your answer is going to be negative. What was his error? He forgot this very first negative sign and he just multiplied these two numbers together. 11. After a recycling awareness program, the number of tons of recyclable material taken to the landfill is reduced. That means they got rid of that by 13 7/10 tons per month. Represent the total change in the tons of recyclable material taken to the landfill after 7 months resulting from the awareness program, and of course, show your work. So here we have that negative 13 7/10 because remember the problem says that it has been reduced and it is happening for a grand total of 7 months, and we know that that happens in tons per month, so we don't have to convert anything. Now you can see 7/10 is a problem that is very easy to convert into a decimal. Anytime you have a number over 10 as the denominator, you can just write negative 13.7 because this 7 means tenths. So negative 13 7/10 is the same as negative 13.7. We're going to multiply that by the 7 months that it happened, and we can see that it has been reduced by negative 95.9, or if you kept it as a fraction, you could say negative 95 9/10 tons per month. Here we place the products in order from least to greatest, and we can do this by working the problems out. We can also look at what the totals would be. So this one right here is going to be in second place. After doing the C method or turning it into an improper fraction, you get 40 over 7 times 40 over 7, which equals 16,000 over 49. We just turn that into a decimal to quickly analyze what that number would be, and it's a positive number, of course. Here we have the only one that is going to result in a negative answer because it's a positive times a negative. So we didn't really have to do anything further. We could just use common sense and be like, well, that one's negative, that's going to be least, right? So that's the least. Then we have the second as the first one, and then the third one we worked out as well because we know that this one is also going to be positive. So we're going to have to compare it with that first answer. Negative 50 over 7 times negative 24 over 5 gives us 1,200 over 35. When we do the long division, or the division in our calculator, we get 34.285, and those decimals go on and on. So when we're comparing, this is a number that has a 32 as a whole number. This number has a 34, so this one would be the greatest. 13, town A has an elevation of negative 13 feet. Town B has an elevation of 7 times lower. Write an equation that represents the elevation of town B. Before we really dive into this problem, just think common sense. Town B has to be lower than town A. If we went ahead and made this 7 into a negative, we would get negative 7 times negative 13 equals positive 91, which doesn't make sense because we know that town B has to be lower. Coming with a positive answer right here would automatically put town B higher than town A. So we know that we're going to leave that 7 positive because it's just referring to how many times bigger that place is. So 7 referring to just the amount lower that it is times the negative 13 represented from town A will give us negative 91. And we can see we have that note over here. It won't be negative 7 times negative 13 because town B has to be lower than negative 13. So town B's elevation at the end, this negative 91, would have to be negative. Here we're selecting all of the word problems that could be represented by 40 times negative 18. We are looking for anything that is making the 18 negative and keeping the 40 positive. So the ones that we ended up selecting were a hot air balloon descends, descend being the word about being lower, per second for 40 seconds. We didn't pick the second one because it said the balloon ascends, which means go up. The third one, tray withdraws, withdraw being a negative word. We didn't pick the fourth one because it says deposit, and deposit is a positive number into your bank account. And then Morty withdraws $40 for 18 months. The withdrawal word is there, but we're withdrawing the 40 and making it negative, and the 18 is staying positive, so it doesn't quite fit the problem that we were given. Here we are talking dividing. We have the exact same rules with dividing as we do with multiplying. A positive times a positive or divided by a positive is positive. A positive divided by a negative is negative. A negative divided by a positive is negative, and a negative divided by a negative is positive. So here we have positive. The quotient of negative 36 divided by negative 6 is 6. When you have a problem that looks like that, read it as a division problem, top divided by bottom. Here we have things from least to greatest. So this is the order of the correct answers. And guys, you can always pause if the video is going too fast to check your work. I know that it's probably going a little bit quickly. Number 4, which of these quotients are equivalent to 5? We don't want negative 5. I think a lot of people think that as long as the absolute value is 5, they can pick the answer, but we want it to be exactly what it says. So we're looking for the ones that give us positive 5. Negative divided by a negative equals a positive. Negative divided by a negative equals a positive. The rest of them are going to give us negative answers. Which of these are equivalent to negative 48 divided by 17? Here, what's happening on the inside is going to be a positive answer because there's no negatives inside these parentheses. They're not absolute value bars, they are parentheses. However, whatever happens on the inside is then going to be affected by the negative on the outside. So we are still looking for a negative answer. We also can see that even though we're not getting a quotient here, we are looking for something that is going to give us a negative answer. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, so we can't pick that one. This one will also give us a positive, but right here we have one negative. Right here we have one negative, and then this is just the mixed number worked out through long division. So all 3 of these will give us a negative, just like this one is negative. Number 6, an elevator steadily descends 500 feet, descend being a negative word, in 20 seconds. How would you express the change in the elevator's height per second? This is so easy. We would just write negative 500 divided by that 20 equals negative 25. It is decreasing 25 feet per second. Write 3 expressions that are equivalent to 70 divided by negative 5. The answer would be negative 14. There's probably a couple different ways that you could do it, but the ones that we chose to show you, negative 70 divided by 5 with your traditional division sign. We have one like we saw above where we have a positive division problem inside the parentheses, but we have a negative on the outside affecting the whole thing. We also have a negative 70 as the numerator with a positive 5 as the denominator. Number 8, Terry descends 110 feet in 10 minutes inside a cave. Which of the expressions shows Terry's change in position from where he was descending? So remember, descend is a negative word. 110 feet in 10 minutes. This means that we need to split up that 110, that negative 110, into 10-minute segments. So right here, we have the negative 110 being divided by the 10. Gina is hiking at the top of the mountain. In 24 minutes, she walks down the mountainside to a location 1,524 feet from the top of the mountain. If she walks at above the same pace, express Gina's average change in altitude per minute. It says that she is hiking from the top of the mountain. So she walks down to a location 1,524 feet from the top of the mountain. So we've got this amount that she has covered. She's going down, that's why it's negative. And we're going to divide that number by 24, giving us negative 63.5 feet per minute. So per minute, that is how many feet she is covering. Number 10, can you find the quotient of negative 152 divided by negative 8 before performing the division? Explain. We know that that is going to be a positive because we are dividing 2 negative numbers. Number 11, if the fraction 294 divided by x is equivalent to negative 14, find the value of x. We can see here that x needs to equal 21 because 294 divided by negative 21 equals negative 14. Number 12, Aubrey's monthly bank statement shows a total of $51 in fees for ATM withdrawals. That month, Aubrey made 17 ATM withdrawals. Write an equation to represent how each ATM withdrawal fee affected Aubrey's bank balance. Okay, well, we know she had a total of negative 51, and it's being split up into those 17 individual ATM withdrawals. If we divide negative 51 by 17, we can see that each of those fees had to be $3 each. Which quotients are equivalent to negative and then parentheses 84 divided by negative 4? First of all, how many negatives do we see in this problem? We see 2, and so we know we're going to get a positive answer of 21. We have positive 21 right here. 42 divided by 2 is positive 21. And again, on this one, keep in mind that we have 2 negatives right there. So negative, and then within the parentheses, 42 divided by negative 2 would also give us 21. Looking at 1/9, find the quotient of 5/6 divided by negative 13/7. When we are dividing fractions, you've got 2 fractions and you see a division sign. This is where you're going to hear people a lot of the times say keep, change, flip. To be a little bit more specific, we always keep the first number, we change division into multiplication, and flip, the basic thing is just saying flip the second number, but we want to flip to the reciprocal. It's important to know the word reciprocal, and reciprocal does mean the flipped version of that fraction. So here it kind of breaks it down for you. 5/6 divided by negative 13/7 equals 5/6 times negative 7/13. So here you have the division problem, and here we're breaking it down into what the multiplication would look like after we keep, change, and flip to the reciprocal. That would equal 35/66 negative, because we have a positive divided by a negative. Over here, this might look scary at first. You've got like what looks like a giant fraction, 7/10 divided by negative 2/5, but it is still just a division problem. Fractions always mean division, and this is just a fraction with a numerator as a fraction and a denominator as a fraction. We would rewrite this as 7/10 divided by negative 2/5 and then rewrite it as multiplication, where we kept the 7/10, we changed to multiplication, and we flipped this fraction to its reciprocal. The product would be negative 1 3/4. If you just did this part, you would get negative 35/20, and then you would go do your long division, and that's what would bring you to this point. Number 3, use the division expression 5/8 divided by 1/16. Write an equivalent multiplication expression. Okay, so 5/8 divided by 1/16, we keep the 5/8, we change division to multiplication, and we flip to the reciprocal of 1/16, which is 16/1. How many times can 5/8 be divided by 1/16? How did you decide? It's 10 times, because we end up with 80/8, and our answer is 10. Use the division expression at negative 10/13 divided by 4 1/3. Write the multiplication expression equivalent to negative 10/13 divided by 4 1/3 after changing that second number to an improper fraction, which we got 12 plus 1 is 13, so we got 13/3. And it looks like on the original work, this one did not get flipped. So I'm going to edit that real quick. So we got 13/3, but we need to now flip that to 3/13. And it does give us negative 30/169. That was just left out of the original problem. This answer, however, is correct. Number 5, after we keep, change, and flip to the reciprocal, our answer is 171/78. We have left that one as an improper fraction just to show you that it is not always bad to have an improper fraction as your answer. Number 8, we have 4/15 divided by negative 3/4. Remember, negative 3/4, because 4 is in the tens place, is just this fraction. So you can see we've decided to use the fraction within the problem. 4/15 divided by negative 3 4/10 would equal 4/15 divided by negative 34/10 after changing it to an improper fraction. Then we're going to flip that second fraction and multiply straight across. Negative 40/510. Of course, both of these numbers end in 0, so we can divide them by 10, and that brings us to our final answer of negative 4/51. It says the quotient of negative 3/4 divided by 1/4 is negative 1/3. What is the correct answer? The correct answer would be saying negative 3/4 times 4/1 equals negative 12/4. 12 divided by 4 is 3, so we get with negative 3 as an answer. What mistake did he make? He multiplied using the reciprocal of negative 3/4. So he accidentally flipped the first number and not the second number. All right, here we have the complex fraction of negative 8/11 divided by negative 3/5. First, we rewrote that as multiplication. We kept, we changed, and we flipped to the reciprocal. Will the quotient of the complex fraction be positive or negative? Explain. Guys, you can explain that without doing any math. You see how many negative signs? 2. A negative divided by a negative is always positive. Explain why when dividing fractions with the same denominator, you can find the quotient by dividing the numerators. Support your answer with an example using one or more mixed numbers. The correct answer is when the denominators of both fractions are the same, the quotient of the denominator is 1. So the quotient of the numerator is the quotient of the whole expression. An example would be 3/4 divided by 3 1/4. After changing this into an improper fraction, we get 3/4 times 4/13. And we can see if we were to simplify early, 4 divided by 4 is 1, and that is what would leave us with 3/13. Number 10, after a heavy rainfall, the water level of a river swelled to the edge of its banks. So there was a lot of rain, so now there's more water. Any more rain would cause a flood. After a few hours, the river went down 1/5 of an inch. Then another storm developed. An additional 1/4 inch of rain was recorded, and the level of the river rose by 1/20th of the amount of rain that fell during the second storm. The expression -1/5 plus 1/4 over 20 over 1 represents the change in inches of the water level of the river. Select all equivalent expressions. So right here, we know that our answer at the end is going to be negative, but we need to look at what's going on here. -1/5 plus, and then we've got a division question. And when we're thinking about PEMDAS, doing things in the correct order of operations, we would have 1/4 because we keep it. We would change division into multiplication, and that 20 over 1 would become 1 over 20. So continuing to work that out, we would get 1, because 1 times 1 is 1, and then 4 times 20 is 80. I would need to find a common denominator. 80 divided by 5 is 16. So I would multiply 16 times 16. -16 over 80 plus 1 over 80 would give me -15 over 80. We can divide both of those numbers by 5, which would give me -3 over 16. So I just wanted to explain how we got this first answer. So that's how we got the -3 over 16. And then right here, that's just what was worked out right there. 1.10. Volleyball team played 5 games. In these games, the team won by 7 points, lost by 3, lost by 2, won by 4, and won by 9. What is the mean? That means average difference in scores of the first 5 games. So we would add up all of our numbers and get a result. Then we would take that result and divide by the number of games played, and we can see that they scored an average of 3 points per game. Use the expression -8 times -2.5 minus 7 within the parentheses there. Simplify the expression by applying the distributive property. So what the distributive property means is this 8 on the outside will get multiplied by both of the things on the inside. So here we have the -8 being multiplied by the -2.5, and here we have the -8 being multiplied by the -7. So multiply these two, and then add your answers together for a result of 76. The water level of a lake fell by 1.5 inches during a 1 2/3 week-long dry spell. Find the average rate at which the water level changed every week. Here we would have 1 2/3, and then it is falling -1 1/2 inches each week. We are going to change both of those into improper fractions. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5. We're going to change that to multiplication because we are dividing. Over here, I would have the 2 times the 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3, and it is negative. But I'm going to take this number and I'm going to flip it for my work down at the bottom. Oop. So we're going to multiply by -2/3. Simplify the expression 2 times 2/5 plus 2 times -1/5. We know that when we are dealing with whole numbers, we can always put our whole numbers over 1, and that makes multiplication much easier. 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 5 is 5. The 2 times -1 is -2. The 1 times 5 is 5. And then we can add those two things together. They already have a common denominator. 4 plus -2 is 2. 5 plus 5 is 5 for an answer of 2/5. Number 5, the temperature of a pot of water was 180.3 degrees Fahrenheit and cools at a rate of -2.5 degrees Fahrenheit per minute. What is the temperature after 20 minutes? We know that it cools at a rate of -2.5 per minute, so we can say, okay, well, we're dealing with 20 minutes. Let's multiply 20 times -2.5, which is -50. And then we can take our original number of 180.3. We know that we're getting rid of 50 degrees because that's how much that we have lost. And that is how we are left with 100.3 degrees Fahrenheit. How many minutes will it take to cool from 180.3 degrees Fahrenheit to 100.3? We can use some mental math, some number sense, or we can work the problem out, but we will find that it does take 32 minutes to get to 100.3 degrees Fahrenheit. Number 6, an elevator descends at a constant speed. What is the change in elevation after 19 seconds? If we look over to the right, we can see the numbers that we are dealing with. If it is going at a constant speed, that means every single minute it is traveling at the same speed. And we know in 1 minute, it's going negative 2.25. Sorry, 1 second, not 1 minute. So we can take that negative 2.25, we can multiply that by 19, and that is how we would get negative 42.75 feet per second. Number 7, the quiz scores for 6 students who studied together in a math class are in the table. What is the mean quiz score? Remember, that is where we add them all up and then we divide by the total number of quiz scores. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you would take your sum, divide by 6, and we can see that the mean or the average quiz score was a 6.75. And then the median means that we have put all of these numbers in order, and we can see by looking at the list of quiz scores that they are already in order, and we are going to find the middle score. So I always, depending on how many numbers I have, no matter if it's a small amount or a big amount, I will cross the first one, then the last one, the first one, then the last one. And I can see I'm left with 2 numbers in the middle. So if I cross these 2 out, I'll be left with nothing. So when we have 2 left, what we have to do is take that middle one and that middle one and add them up. We get 14.5. I added 2 up, so I'm going to take that average. I'm going to divide by 2, and I do get 7.25. So the median quiz score was a 7.25. Our last page, guys. Josiah is asked to simplify the expression 2/3 plus 1/2, and then in parentheses we have 8 plus 3 1/4. He incorrectly claims that the expression simplifies to 13 1/8. The correct value of the expression is 6 7/24. The mistake that he made is he did not follow his order of operations. He just went from left to right. The table shows the temperatures of water in 14 different beakers. What is the average? Remember, average means mean. Those 2 words are synonyms. What is the average temperature rounded to the nearest tenth of a degree? So we can see that the 4.5 happened 3 times. So if we were adding all of these up, we would really say 4.5 plus 4.5 plus 4.5. The 3.7 happened 4 times. The 4.3 happened twice. 4.1 happened 3 times, and the 2.9 happened twice. When we add all of those numbers up, we get 55, and then 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 2 is 9, plus 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14. So we would divide that by 14, and that is what gives us 3.9. 2, 8, 5, it goes on and on and on, but it says to the nearest tenth, so we would just take the 3.9. A swimming pool is draining at a constant rate. The table shows the proportional relationship between the change in the water level and the number of hours the pool has drained. Complete the table to show the change in water level at 9 and 23 hours. If we divide negative 3.5 by 2, we can figure out how much it drains in 1 hour. So in 1 hour, it drains negative 1.75, and then we can take our hours and we can just multiply to find these. So this one would be negative 1.75 times 9, and this one would be negative 1.75 times 23. In a classroom, there are 6 students who are 5.5 feet tall, 2 students who are 4 3/4 feet tall, 4 students who are 4 1/4 feet tall, and 2 students who are 6 feet tall. Which expression represents the mean height of the students in the classroom? So remember, when we're trying to find the mean, we want to add up all of the data that we are curious about. We're curious about heights here. So we're going to add up all of those heights. And what they have done for us is they have treated this as distributive property. We know that this number that I highlighted in green represents the amount of students who are that tall. And then we are multiplying that number times their height. And that's just going to simplify the process. Remember on this one how I wrote all of those numbers in a long list and added them up? I could have just said 3 times 4.5 plus 3.7 times 4, etc. And then down here, this represents the number that we will end up dividing them by. We would add up all of the students and divide them by that number. So this just isn't a simplified problem. It's very long and a little bit more complex, but that's just because it hasn't been simplified down. This would be what the raw work would look like before we ended up solving the problem. Your test is going to be 18 questions, and it's going to be a mix of computation and word problems. We just want you to feel prepared, and we wish you the best of luck. As always, you can ask your teachers any questions that you may have, and we hope that this video helped at least give you the answers, and have a great day.